We bring you to the darker side of investigations. This is the Investigation Guru podcast with Sean and Dana.
All right, hello and welcome to the Investigation Guru podcast. This is the official podcast of Red Door Investigations. I'm Sean, and with me as always is Dana.
Hey y'all.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
All right, today we're going to talk about infidelity. Infidelity is kind of a big topic in private investigations. It's a pretty big source of our business.
It is. There's a lot of people.
There are a lot of people, a lot of people who don't do what they're supposed to do, who don't behave how they're supposed to behave. A lot of people have a lot of wonders and doubts.
Goes beyond that though, right? Doesn't it kind of break down to your moral compass?
Your moral compass? Yeah?
Yeah, I think so. I think your moral compass has a lot to do with your choices, especially in a relationship.
So you're saying if you cheat, then you're immoral?
Absolutely.
I would think so too, yeah.
Your face looked like it was questioning that. Excuse me? Do we need to talk?
No.
I'm just kidding.
All right, so we kind of have a little outline we're going to go by here. So hopefully this doesn't drag on for ever and ever. But we're going to talk about several different things here, dealing with infidelity in relationships. So let's go ahead and dive in.
Sorry, I was yawning.
Oh, were you? Okay.
I don't find this boring by any means.
Yeah. All right, so talking about relationships in general, and basically how relationships can kind of develop over time and how they change, and why people can kind of start to wander and almost not really lose interest in their current partner, but
it's losing interest.
Yeah, maybe, especially in like today's society where people are constantly looking for change, and our attention spans are so limited, and it's probably one of those things that's almost kind of getting worse with time. We're not really, I wouldn't say we're improving as a society.
Second that.
Yeah. All right, so kind of entering psychology mode here. Basically, we're going to talk about the different kinds of love and how, again, relationships evolve and they change. People grow together, and sometimes people, tend to grow apart, and it's not something that, every relationship is different. And, what works for one couple isn't always going to work for everyone. So find out what works for you, and if your relationship is solid and you think you're happy, then keep doing what you're doing, because again, what works for one person or one relationship may not always work for everyone. So
right, custom. I think you have to customize things, right?
Yeah,
a little bit, kind of tailor it to each relationship. Meaning, the relationships you had when you were a teenager are quite different than the relationships you have today as an adult, speaking for myself. So yeah, every individual is different, therefore a relationship is different.
Exactly.
So it's just a matter of customizing things and kind of listening to your partner and respecting them.
Yeah.
Putting the time and effort into a relationship, it takes work. It takes dedication. It's a true commitment, especially when you're married. It's for me personally, when you take an oath, it's important to honor your husband, your wife. It's important to respect their needs, their wants. I think you can really come together really well if you communicate with respect and kindness and compassion. Honestly, I think it takes a lot of compassion. We're all on different levels, intellectually, emotionally. 99% of the time, people are having emotional responses, and that can lead to again, to the road of infidelity. When you're having issues in your marriage, you typically have an emotional reaction with that. It doesn't fall back on logic. And Sean and I differ in this.
Yeah, I tend to be more almost kind of an intellectual, thinker, and she's definitely more of the feeler. So, again, we complement each other really, really well. We're kind of one of those where, I fall short, she picks up the slack, and vice versa. And that's really kind of what makes a good relationship, complementing each other, and not compliment as in, you look nice today, although that's also important, but complimenting, where you fill in each other's gaps, because no one has the complete picture, and you have to work well together. You have to really mesh, and in order to mesh, then you really kind of have to really fill in each other's blanks and make sure that what you have is makes your partner better, and you lift each other up instead of dragging each other down. And one of those things is finding out that you're compatible. And there are several different ways of being compatible. There's emotional compatibility, there's sexual compatibility, there's you have to be able to meet each other's emotional needs and physical needs and social needs and all kinds of things. And so making sure that you fit together and is part of the process of courting each other. And that's getting to know each other and making sure that who you are and what you can offer to the relationship is what something that the other person either lacks or that they need, and vice versa.
Right. And there's two types of love. So you have compassionate and then you have passionate. Tell me a little bit about that, Doc.
Well, passionate love is basically the electric, that animalistic drive, that urge to be in each other's presence. It's really kind of what is the the honeymoon phase of a relationship when they're first starting.
Physical attraction, right?
Physical attraction's a
initial.
really big part of it. You have to have that passion. You have to have that desire. You have to have that drive, and that's kind of the foundation of really any strong, stable relationship and marriage. If you don't have the passion, if you don't have that attraction, that drive, that desire to be with each other, then really, what's the point?
Right. Agreed. Well, I think it's so different for women than men.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Women are for me, I'll speak on myself actually here. I personally am attracted to somebody by their emotional, what they give emotionally, first and foremost. To me, that's the most valuable thing in a person is, do they care about humanity? Do they have compassion? Do they have morals? Do they have values? Do they have family values? That's
Yeah,
it's a big one. Big one.
exactly.
Yeah, and you got to be on the same page though. Even though you think differently, you can absolutely get on the same page. You tell me more about the
About what?
the male perspective.
Oh, we haven't finished the different kinds of love yet.
We're going go ahead.
All right. I gotta stay in this psychology mode here. We got
Yeah, you can do that.
All right, so
I enjoy it.
The passionate phase is basically what again, that magnetic, the thing that brings a lot of people together. But again, that honeymoon phase, it doesn't really last forever. It's gonna kind of wear off, and the new car smell or whatever is gonna leave, and you gotta make that
New cars.
yeah, you got to make that transition to what's going to carry you through the long term. And usually what carries relationships through, people who stay married, 30, 40, 50 years, is they're able to make that transition to the second type of love, which is compassionate love.
We're talking about successful marriages. We're not talking about the marriages that are together because kids and they are unhappy. And we're talking about successful marriage.
People who would describe themselves as being happy. Yeah.
Right.
What makes marriages work, and basically compassionate love is the trust and the intimacy and the support and those types of compatibility issues that are kind of go beyond the physical. And this is something that, again, the passion of that passion, that lust, all of that compatibility and everything, that's really good for bringing people together. And the drive to even initiate any kind of relationship with this person, that's a very, very important, and some might even say kind of fundamental
Yeah.
part of a relationship. It's very, very important. You've got to have that passion, that drive, that need for each other. But again, if you're not able to make that transition from the honeymoon phase, that new car smell, whatever, if you're not able to transition that to the loving, supporting, trusting, that intimacy, putting other people's needs ahead of your own, then all unlikely you're probably just not going to make it. Statistically speaking, divorces now, about 50-60%? Something, most marriages
I believe that's correct.
end in divorce. So yeah, it's not going to be odds are not in favor of people staying together, especially again, today's society where
There's a lot of stresses. I mean,
yeah,
everything's changing, especially current.
exactly. And, statistically speaking, most marriages will end in divorce. And this is not just for marriage. This is something that can apply to relationships as well. And
Absolutely.
it can apply to not everyone chooses to get married, so it's not
Right.
it's not solely something that
Marriage isn't for everyone either. I mean,
right.
and some marriages are common law, and that's okay.
Yeah,
At the end of the day, that's a piece of paper.
exactly. So making that transition from kind of the honeymoon phase to the long term, trust and intimacy and all those things, all the part of the relationship that takes the work. The passionate phase is that is easy. It doesn't require any kind of effort or vulnerability. But if you want to stick it out and you want to make it through the long haul, then you've got to kind of make that switch, and you've got to kind of fill in the gaps. That when this new car smell, this passionate phase wears off, then you really got to kind of have something there to fill in the gaps to back it up. Or
Everything requires heart, I think.
yeah,
No matter what we do, it requires your innermost feelings and emotions, and it takes application of that. You can't
exactly. Yeah,
can't kind of depend on the whole physical attraction to keep it going for the long haul. That's just inconceivable, honestly.
yeah. You got to start that work early. A lot of people are kind of get lulled into just kind of riding that wave of the fun, and they don't put in the work that's needed to keep that going. So again, once that passionate phase wears off, and it always does, then the frequency of sex goes down, and the frequency of that intimacy and all of that tends to, the longer a couple stays married or stays together, usually especially if you don't put in the work, but they tend to kind of drift apart, and that's where a lot of things really kind of go south.
Yeah, and you can't expect a marriage to actually be successful if you don't have that foundation. That foundation is what creates the walls, basically. It all the problems that come in between, in your life, whether it be personal or within the relationship. You need a good foundation so that you can create a wall of structure to kind of protect the relationship,
Yeah,
if so to speak. I know this probably sounds cliche, but it's true. You have to have a good foundation, because otherwise, when problems arise in the marriage, you will not be able to face those problems together individually. You will not be able to work through them. You will not be able to communicate. It just everything comes down to basically the compassionate love. I mean, yeah, passionate love's great and all.
yeah, it is.
It is, no doubt. But, when it comes down to it, where success derives from, it derives from the compassionate love aspect.
Exactly.
It just does. I mean, without it, you're going to sink, you
Yep.
know?
Most likely. I mean, some
likely,
relationships,
yeah.
will.
Well, some are surface, they're
Yeah.
all about the surface.
That's a good way to put
Materialistic,
it. Yeah.
and they're okay with that, you
Yeah.
know? Which
Again,
is cool. I mean, to each his own. But
Whatever floats your boat, whatever gets you.
But make sure that's where compatibility comes into play.
Exactly.
Because eventually it'll catch up. What's on the surface, everything comes out eventually, one way or another. So yeah, just make sure you're compatible. Because if you're a surface person, that's what I call them. If you are somebody who cares about materials and images and things like this, that society tends to fall back on for security purposes and self-esteem, to build their self-esteem. I mean, there's other people out there like that, and that's who you need to be with if you're a surface person. But if you're not, and you're struggling in your marriage or relationship because of your levels of intimacy is different, or your emotional levels different, it's probably because one of you are surface and one of you are deeper person.
And this doesn't mean that just because you have problems that who you're with is not right for you. Every marriage is going to go through ups and downs, and
sometimes you got to dig deeper in that person.
Right.
Sometimes you got to pull it out of them.
Yeah.
It's there, You really do. I mean, I've been through this in past relationships where you think this person is oh gosh, just broken and broken beyond repair. But again, if you put the work into it and effort, you can really learn a lot from each other, and learn to really, really have a great bond. I think that's important.
exactly. Yeah.
But,
So what happens when this passionate phase wears off? What how do we really kind of make that transition from one to another? How do you know if you have it or you don't? Is there? I mean, what?
I think I know pretty early on.
Pretty early on.
Yeah.
Like how?
I guess in the dating phase, I was married for almost 13 years, so I can't really say. I don't have a lot of experience, and I'll let you know. I'm 43, 3 kids, 1 granddaughter, 1 dog. They're all females, believe it or not. But but I still do understand the male. I do understand very well the male subject. Again, I was married for almost 13 years, but how do you know? I mean, what do you mean by that, though? That's not a specific.
How do you make it work? I mean, from like the female perspective, and how do you what is it you're looking for? What kind of, I mean, what makes it work for you?
Personally, or just
I mean,
yeah. I had to be bonded by the heart first, honestly. I'm not a surface person. I don't know how to explain that, but I fully believe in matters of the heart being dealt with, and I'm very analytical, and so I don't know. For me personally, you really have to have a good heart, have a good moral compass, and I don't know.
yeah.
I know for men it's different. For
Oh,
women,
yeah.
it's more of an emotional. Women, it's more emotional. That's the standardized statement. But I know a lot of women who are more surface, and their marriages aren't thriving.
There's a lot of men who are really
So,
deep too.
They are. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, of course there are. Absolutely. Yeah, you can make it work for sure. I mean, again, with respect and communication, healthy communication, not the, it's okay to disagree. It's not okay to be shouting at your partner, cussing them out, or, slamming doors. That's not healthy. That's not healthy communication. That tends to lead to other things that you should never even consider. We're talking about violence here.
Right.
It can happen. Trust me. So I don't know. I don't know. You tell me from the male perspective. Maybe I can
Male
give me a minute to think.
men we're kind of easy. It's gotta what?
Go ahead.
Yeah, men are different from women. We look for different things, and Again, what we each bring to the table is very, very different, and what we're looking for is something that again, this all goes back to the complementing or being complementary to each other. Men have different needs than women, and it's something that the more, I guess, the more you understand the needs of your partner, and again, that this kind of comes back to the communication. And it's very important to be open with your partner, and understand and realize what he or she needs, and do your damnedest to meet those needs and meet them consistently. Or again, things will fall apart. It can lead to resentment and all kinds of things. And once that road kind of comes down, it's a lot easier to keep going down that road than it is to backtrack and reevaluate and again put in the work that is needed to fix what should never have corroded or been broken in the first place. Excuse me, hang on just a second. Let's talk about how infidelities, like when things really kind of go wrong, and how when eyes start to wander, and when you start to really kind of be less invested in your relationship. And infidelity doesn't really have to be all about sex. It doesn't have to involve sex at all. You can have emotional infidelity, or putting someone else again ahead of your partner. All of these things would qualify. It's not just about sex.
It's not just that though either. There's the wandering eye.
Yeah.
When your partner, husband, wife, whatever, when you notice them, looking at other women or flirting with them, I mean that's a disrespect, and it's a betrayal to a person's heart, male or female. You notice these things. For me, when I was married, honestly, I didn't look at another man. I didn't have attractions to other men. I didn't feel. And today, with you, Sean, of course, I don't feel those things. We talked about this recently, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
But yeah, I don't have that in me. I don't know. I don't know. I wouldn't call it loyalty. I mean, I guess it is a form of loyalty.
It's commitment.
It's commitment. Yeah, it is commitment.
Making that decision to.
But I don't have that in me. You know what I mean? I don't have that
commitment.
No, no. No, I don't have it in me to want to wander. What makes you, as a male, because usually that's a male thing. Not that it's not women either, because it is, but it typically is. Statistically, it is a male thing. A male is more eyeing of the women. And I understand women are beautiful creatures. I mean, they are. But what makes a man do that? Because like me, I don't even have that in my. I'm not programmed that way, I guess you could say, so to speak.
Well, that's a whole other rabbit hole. But speaking from a man, it's something that with all of the evolutionary pressures and things that we
right
as a man, it's kind of a numbers game, and basically the more women that allow us to mate with them or have sex or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, that's the scientist thing. Sorry, but then the greater the chances that we're going to pass on our genes to the next generation and have a child or whatever. And again, that these types of evolutionary and biological pressures, it's actually something that is in our genes, is in our DNA.
Right.
And we have that biological pressure to, increase our chances of having children. And for women, it's
like an evolutionary force.
Yeah. So it's not, it's not out of our control. It's possible to not act on that, of course.
We were talking about acting. I was talking about when the whole point of the wandering eye. Where does that come from?
That's a good question. I'm not sure exactly,
I stumped you.
why men feel the need to, to do that.
Well,
It does. There are, evolutionary pressures, and because again, with guys, it's kind of this numbers game, and if we have this need to
procreate,
and the male involvement in raising kids and things like that is usually much lower than it is for women. Guys can basically have sex once and pass on their genes, and if you're from an evolutionary psychological standpoint, again, that's really kind of where this comes from.
Women can have sex once and pass and can be
but you guys have a much more involved you have 9 months of
Well, yes, you're talking about how many times.
Well, yeah,
like your man can impregnate somebody probably every minute. How many times they can? Obviously, not the case. Women are ovulating,
yeah,
but
exactly.
But I'm saying, just hear me out. So it's a numbers game basically. A man can go out and pretty much penetrate a woman and impregnate her.
Well, okay. Women can only have one child per year. Men can have as many children as they can get women pregnant.
It's a great responsibility, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think.
And so again, this is
to wrap it, guys.
If I had to say that, then that's probably what it is. Just the evolutionary pressure, the numbers game of what it the goal of men, especially this biological urge, and it's not just humans. It's
the animalistic breeding.
Exactly.
Thing. We have that. I mean, whether we admit to it or realize it, even for that matter, it really does go back to the mammal in us, the animalistic breeding. For a man, it's different, obviously, but
yeah, being the pursuers and all of that, the
hunters and gatherers. We can go into this all day.
Like I said, this is a rabbit hole.
It's a rabbit hole. Psychology is a rabbit hole for sure.
We could spend lots and lots of time on.
Mind spinning.
So what happens when when things do go wrong? If something if you're suspecting that your husband or wife has strayed,
yeah,
and not is not what do you do? How do you figure that out? How do you why is that so devastating? And it's devastating for both men and women, but probably for different reasons.
Right. I think for a woman, it's usually we're the nurturer of the relationship, so it's not just a break, betrayal or a break of a vow. It's you put your whole heart and soul into your family, and I think that kind of betrayal, I think it can really damage a woman. I mean, it can if you allow it. But for a man, what do you think?
Are women more like, would it be more devastating if I loved someone or if I slept with someone?
Oh, that's a good question. No, definitely the love.
Yeah, I think
sex is just sex at the end of the day, but love is different.
And that's
again, the emotional bond. You're not just breaking a sexual bond there. You're breaking the. Are you talking about through sex or through just love, like communication?
Either one. I mean, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, yeah. I mean, if especially if sex is involved, you're kind of breaking both those vows.
Which would hurt more if I slept with someone else or if I loved
that
someone
bond.
else?
If you love someone else, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And again, that's another one of the kind of the differences between men and women.
Why would it be different for you?
Oh yeah, I would be much more devastated if you slept with someone.
Why? Is
I
that
don't-
it just
that-
go
again,
against
that-
your
that-
ego, maybe? A little
Well,
bit?
it's not really ego
People are
as much as it
sometimes-
is, you
They
know,
thrive on ego.
again, this evolutionary pressure and, you know, something called, there's actually a thing called paternity uncertainty, where, you know, any child that the female in the relationship bears, the man can never really be 100% certain that it is his.
True.
Ultimately, we have to just kind of take your word for it.
Yeah,
So-
DNA is not even 100%. So.
Yeah, paternity tests even can't say with 100% certainty that the man is the father. They can rule him out with 100% certainty, but even, you know, something like a paternity test, ultimately
What's the highest percentage on that? Like 99.97 or something?
no, it's like, I think it's closer to 97 or 98.
Oh, is it?
Well, I mean, yeah, for all intents and purposes, yeah.
I knew it had a 9 and 7, and I've read the
Yeah.
statistics somewhere. So yeah, it sounds a bit more. Yeah, that sounds more
But
accurate.
there is that small possibility that,
Right.
you know. So men, you know, again, we're gonna kind of invest our resources in a woman and their child, and being able to ensure or at least maximize the chances that this child is ours. That really, that's why men are so hung up on sex and on, you know, making sure that yeah,
Your hormones are quite different than ours.
that,
so
that is true as
I'm
well.
thinking
yeah.
that's probably more. Not that that's not true, per se, but I think that majority of it is a man's hormones are just so different than from a woman's.
And if you think about it, you know, women are much more emotional creatures, and men tend to be more physical. And you know, the stereotype is going to
Fits
hold.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just scientifically speaking.
So women would be more betrayed by emotional infidelity, and
Right.
men would probably be more betrayed by
What is
physical.
that though? I mean, so the emotional. I don't know though, because it takes a lot more to love somebody. It takes for women too. I think it takes intimacy, some kind of physical intimacy. So do you think, this is my question, this is where I'm going with this. Do you think men can fall in love easily with their mistress? Or do you think that's something more of, again, a physical thing, not so much emotional?
Well, you have to think about how men and women view love and what love means to a man and what love means to a woman.
Right.
Female love, what love means to a woman is usually more, again, that emotional connection, that emotional bond, how close you are to each other. And, you know, to a certain extent, that's kind of what it is with men as well. But again, men place much more stock in the physical,
Right.
and how, you know, how physically available a woman is. It's very hard for,
It makes sense.
yeah.
When my marriage went kaput, I won't discuss that here, but yeah, I'd gained a lot of weight from medications.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Yeah.
And that's, you know, again, men kind of get a bad rap, you know. We try to, you know, it's...
What? What do you mean?
Yeah, like if a man, you know, loses interest in his wife or whatever because she gains weight or whatever, that's usually pretty horrifying. And you know, a good man wouldn't do that. Who loves his wife and everything. You know.
Well, that's why you got to have the foundation.
Yeah, you've got.
Like I said, problems arise.
Exactly. It's all going to come back to those.
It's all going to come back
to those two different kinds of love. But
yeah.
Again, you know, for a man, that's much more important than it is for not that it's not important for women, but you know, for a man, it's much more. I guess a priority than it is for a woman. You know, men are much more interested in what a woman is than, you know, women are what a woman. Women are probably looking for more who their man is,
You're right.
what kind of person
Good
he
point.
is, and things like that.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been in, I would say, 3 total serious relationships. One being my marriage, the second one being a nearly 5-year relationship before Sean, and of course another Sean. We were together for over 4 years, so I tend to actually, mine are usually long term. Again, my marriage was almost 13 years, and the man before Sean, he passed away So I met Sean. Now we're going 4 years strong. So, but I don't know where I was going with that.
I don't either.
It happens. Yeah, I don't know what I was saying. Doesn't matter. Go ahead.
All right.
Maybe you're trying to say something.
What? So we have, you're trucking along in your relationship, and everything is going good, and all of a sudden your spouse or significant other starts to change, and certain things in the relationship aren't really how they used to be. You're not really sure what happened, or you go through all these periods of self-doubt where you start to wonder, did I do something wrong? Is there something wrong with them, or what is this something that's temporary? And for a lot of times, one of your first instincts is is there someone else? And that's
You know what, though? I want to say this. Before you start accusing somebody of infidelity, please, 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 for the love of God, have some evidence.
Mhm.
Don't accuse somebody of something. That is just an allegation, because your emotions can get the best of you, and your mind can actually start creating things and kind of making something out of nothing. It's not to say there's not a problem, maybe there somewhere, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a cheating matter. It just doesn't. So just for the love of God, please, find out first before you, do everything you can. Again, this is what we do. We're PIs, so we investigate. Infidelities is one of our specialties. But yeah, for the love of God, please, find out before you accuse, because that itself can be very damaging to a person, because that's attacking their integrity. And that can really hurt somebody. That can hurt the relationship. That can hurt the person, the individual.
That doesn't mean that your gut instinct is
Always
wrong.
right. No.
What? Yeah,
It's not always right either.
It's not always right, no. But
I can vouch for that. I could say my gut instinct sometimes, I'm not saying I don't have good intuition, because I just do. I really do. But there are times when, again, your mind kind of carries things away, and you start creating things in your head, scenarios, and I don't mean physical evidence. There's so many things, so many signs of cheating that you should be looking out for if you're concerned about that. And we'll go into that, of course, but I don't know. Yeah, you're right.
people know, especially the longer you're together,
Mm-hmm.
you start to kind of fall into that rut, and the day-to-day things, and problems are going to creep up too. And your ability to kind of weather those problems, and your ability to kind of do conflict well, or
that's where coping comes in.
yeah, then the more resilient you are to outside influences. But again, not everybody.
Yeah, honestly, I think that even the strongest marriages can fall to infidelity. When you think that person could never do that to you. Wow. Sometimes it can really, really, really just take you, by surprise. And it's funny because you don't always see the signs. You don't, because you love and trust that person so much.
And then there's the other extreme as well, where you're you're convinced that maybe you've been cheated on in the past or whatever, and
Right.
you have trust issues
Baggage.
inherent just coming out of the gate. Mm-hmm. And this is again probably more on the man side. Although there are some women
Women out there like that
who are convinced
they don't
that,
mean to be, but they don't know how to leave the baggage at the door, so to speak.
Women tend to usually be a little more self-reliant, and usually more mature. Especially men tend to kind of overestimate threat and overreact and things like that. Just because again that's kind of our nature. But yeah, there are some signs that you can kind of look for, and
Right.
we actually have a blog post on our website, reddoorinvestigations.com. We have several, where we kind of go into these types of infidelity, and what infidelity means, and what it is, and what you can look out for. So we're going to kind of go over, a few of these signs that, if your partner, your significant other, or your spouse or whatever, if you see a lot of these types of signs, again, that might be something to look out for. But we want to caution you that even if you do see some of these signs in your partner, that does not mean that your partner is being unfaithful. And your partner, on the flip side of that, your partner can be unfaithful and not show any of these signs.
Right.
But this is just kind of a little marker roadmap type thing. And again, look for multiple instances of these and see, if there's, if you suspect something, your gut instinct's telling you that something is not right, then again, that's something that,
Doesn't necessarily
again,
mean
it doesn't mean that,
there's every person has inner struggles that we don't always want to share, and I understand that.
And there may be something else going on,
Right.
problems at work or whatever, and just because your spouse is distant, or that doesn't mean, don't make waves where there aren't any.
Correct. Yeah. That is important.
All right, so number one, changes in your spouse's behavior. This is probably the number one signal that to most people that something is wrong. Your spouse, might start working late, quote unquote. They might, if your man has a huge sexual appetite for the last 4 years, and since the first day you met him or whatever, and all of a sudden,
He's losing interest.
He's losing interest,
sex,
or it's just not something. If your woman is usually more accommodating, and now things aren't happening as often as you might like. Again, for men, the signs are going to be more sexual, and for women, the signs are probably going to be a lot more emotional.
That's true, but you know what? I'm a firm believer in the whole pay attention to your environment thing.
Exactly.
You got to pay attention to your environment. If this person's jumping off to go on a business trip all of a sudden and didn't mention it before, you may want to. Yeah, that's questionable. Let me just say that.
And again, you have to kind of take everything in context as well.
You do, yeah.
People have parts of their lives that may not involve your spouse. Your spouse doesn't go to work with you or anything like that, and it's highly possible that his boss or her boss did spring a last minute trip on you, and just because your significant other needs to go out of town, all of a sudden doesn't mean that something's going on.
I'm going to interrupt here for a moment.
Yeah.
So before you start making allegations or whatnot against your partner for infidelity or being unfaithful in your marriage or relationship, I think it's really important to look at what's going on in the relationship first, because it seriously you can create waves where there's none there.
Right.
So it's important to kind of to pay attention to your environment, not just these things we're telling you about, these signs, because it's not. There's certain stresses in life that can really contribute to a person withdrawing from their partner. Stress being the number one thing. I mean, so many things in life can stress you out. There's a lot of things that can happen to an individual within a marriage that can contribute to the problems in the marriage. Again, communication. But I wanted to put that out there real quick before we start on this, because if you're thinking there's something going on, there's it's a possibility. Obviously, I can't sit here and promise you that's not the case. No one could, but just kind of pay attention to the whole picture.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Don't try to, because it's so important not to attack your partner, or not to handle it in that way. With these kind of situations, I think it's an emotional response. You don't necessarily have a logical response, and I'm a firm believer in logical responses. People. Just don't have emotional responses.
Right.
Sean's more of an emotional response person.
Don't jump the gun.
Right.
Don't make waves where there aren't any.
Right. I just wanted I want to say that before you go into this list, because I think people need to hear that.
Yeah, so changes in their normal behavior, their normal schedule, their ability to, be where they say they are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you start noticing, any kind of real drastic behavioral change, then that's something to kind of be aware of, and start maybe start investing a little bit more if you've let things slide a little bit, then that might be something that a sign that your partner is either not happy, or but again, it could be something that they are just
Under a
going
great
through
deal of
something
stress.
else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another common sign is protecting their cell phone, keeping things hidden. They're not really.
They're going out of the room and they're being almost secretive, or not necessarily trying to hide it, but kind of going out of the way to shield, I guess you would say. Maybe.
Yeah, if they get a call and every single time their phone rings,
Or text.
they're
'cause
or
a lot of
text.
people text these
If
days.
they're they leave the room, or they don't want you to see it, and respecting privacy and things like that can also be a thing. But if they go out of their way when perhaps they didn't before, then again that might be something to take a look at.
Yeah, and I think it's accumulation of these signs, though. I think, I don't know. I
Yeah,
feel
one or
like-
two is not going to be a big thing, but if there are a lot of things that
red flags, so
especially
to speak.
especially if they change suddenly.
Right,
Yeah.
that's true.
Being more concerned about how they look, how they dress. Maybe they've started working out more. Maybe they've started buying a lot of new clothes, things like that. But being
Nails getting, they'll
Yeah.
like get their nails done, or I don't know, doing
And
their maybe dressing differently even.
and especially if it's something that they may not have been really overly concerned about it
Before,
in
yeah.
the past,
Exactly.
and all of a sudden they're overly concerned with how they look and their appearance, and that again and again that's for both men and women.
Yeah, and then again, these aren't all. You can't necessarily say someone's having an affair or being unfaithful because they're working out. There's all kinds of stress factors. It's therapeutic sometimes for people to work out, and if they're under a large amount of stress, it's possible that your spouse or your significant other is under a lot of stress. Again, I'm a firm believer actually in exercise. I used to run 5 miles a day, and I did that for, I don't know, a year and a half maybe,
Yeah.
daily. And that was during a significantly hard time. I was going through a very hard time, which I won't go into here. But so that was me. That was me in my marriage. I was doing something personal. And so please, again, this is why I want to reiterate this. Do not, just because a person's working out or somebody's, now the appearance, of course, if they're getting their hair done and, having, I don't know, they're changing their clothes, their wardrobe even. I think that's a big telltale sign. The working out thing, I can personally vouch. It's not always, sometimes it's a personal matter.
If they're behaving like they're trying to impress someone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, changing the overall
Right,
look.
yeah.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
All right, number 4.
That is true.
There are more arguments. You guys argue more frequently. He or she may have a much shorter fuse. A lot of things that maybe they weren't really that concerned about, now they're starting to nitpick, and they're trying to find ways to either distance themselves from the relationship, or kind of reinforce to themselves that the relationship is not as good as they thought it was. And this can kind of be a way to, again, emotionally distance themselves from their relationship and almost kind of validate to themselves what they're doing. Because if you can convince yourself that what you have is not very good, then it's that much easier to kind of turn your back on it and throw it down the drain. So again, nitpicking and starting a lot of arguments over things, making mountains out of molehills, and not really just an overall greater dissatisfaction with the way things are in their current relationship, then that again can be a sign that something's not right.
Right.
Number 5, spending more time away from home. Again, this kind of again is a way to distance themselves from where they are. The relationship at home is not really where they want to be, I guess. So spending more time away from home, working longer hours where before they didn't, going out with friends, guys or girls. It's again another way to kind of emotionally and not only physically but also emotionally distance themselves from what they have at home.
That's true. Your spouse or loved one receives phone calls during all hours of the day and or night. They may also seek a safe haven away from the house, or more importantly, away from you to answer these calls. Increased need and desire for privacy can mean that they are doing things they don't want you to know about. So this kind of falls in with things we've just previously discussed. Probably no need to.
Yeah, if they're talking to people more, and again, the big marker is change in behavior. If they've always gotten calls from people, and they're a social person, then that may be nothing to really worry about. But if for the first 12 years of your marriage or whatever, they've haven't done that, or their social engagement has not really been that high, then all of a sudden things start to kind of take off, and it's Grand Central Station. And if they leave the room when they get a phone call, or if they're texting all hours of the night or whatever, then that is something that again could also be a signal. Or it may not. It again kind of look at the aggregate of all of these things, and none of this is not a science. There are things that we don't have on this list, and so again, the big thing is a change from their normal routine, their normal behavior, how things have been from the past. Look at that, and again, you'll know if something is not right, if something is what, you're shaking your head.
No, I'm just, go ahead.
No, go ahead. What do you got?
Hey.
Hey.
How's it going?
Hey.
Just kidding. Well, I mean, you can't always, things can't always be determined by that. I'm not a big believer on lists. I believe in, I mean, not these lists aren't helpful, because they are. I mean, statistically, this is what's out there, and as far as helpful information. But I mean, I don't know. I just feel like there's so much more to it. There could be so much more to it. There's so many things that a person can be going through that could look like an affair, and it's not.
Right.
So that's, I mean, just I would hate for anyone to hear us and think that, oh my gosh, this, my spouse has, 10 out of 15 of these things,
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what I don't feel good about this because of that. So.
The only way to really know for sure is to get proof.
It is. Yeah, it really is.
And, until if you suspect something, then that may be kind of a red flag, and you might want to start taking a little bit more notice. But until you have proof in hand, again, it's best not to make waves where there aren't any.
Right. Okay. So, yeah, this one may seem pretty obvious, but a man taking Viagra for the first time, or a woman starting birth control.
Yeah. Again, any kind of sexual enhancement obviously is something that
that would be a red flag. See, that's one of those things that would be evidence almost.
That would be a pretty big red flag, yeah.
Right, yeah. I mean, if you're because it's not just for erectile dysfunction, it's for performance enhancement. So that means it elongates your sexual drive, meaning that person, your spouse, your significant other, may be taking that drug so that they can last longer, basically,
Right.
to have more of a passionate session, I guess you could say. So if your spouse isn't taking Viagra and he's all of a sudden taking Viagra, that to me, that's evidence. that's a pretty
strong
good
case. Yeah. Of course, if you're lucky enough to to find that, I doubt that would be done out in the open. I mean, they're not going to keep it in their.
But when you're married, you can
bathroom. Right.
Even there's privacy HIPAA laws.
Exactly.
There's still ways to access that. Not that I'm encouraging you to go look at your husband or wife's chart online. But I feel like if you're married and you're in a good relationship, you have access to those things. There shouldn't be any secrets like that.
Yeah,
So,
secrets are bad.
secrets are really bad.
Telling little white lies about where you're going. If they tell you they're going to, to the store to buy sandwich meat or whatever, and they make a quick run to the gym, or something like that.
Who does that though?
I don't know. I'm
Honey,
sure,
I'm gonna go get some bread.
yeah,
Come back 2 hours later. Where are you at? I was getting bread. I was in line.
I'm sure it happens though. But yeah, again, telling, not
it
being
does.
forthcoming, or
I've heard stories. Yeah.
or truthful about where they are. That's obviously another pretty big one.
Right. Definitely. Yeah, if something's taking longer than it should, they're preoccupied with something. I'm not sure what that would be, but I mean, I don't know. They could have got a business call. They could be on their email.
Yeah.
It could be, see, that's what I'm saying. This is such a
You can't, yeah.
This is not a black and white matter.
You
It
can't
just
take this
isn't.
definitively. Exactly.
No,
Right.
it's so much. Again, I'm analytical, so forgive me for being analytical.
Smelling perfume or cologne on your significant other that is not yours. That's a pretty big sign if they have,
Does that even happen anymore?
Uh,
That's like the 50s, I think, maybe era.
well, yeah, maybe. People still wear perfume and cologne.
Not often.
So if you,
And
if you smell another woman on your man's shirt, or
that has
especially
to
if you
happen more
see-
than once, though.
Oh yeah,
Because really, come on.
yeah.
I mean, even the car scent in the car, there's vanilla scent. What if you know what I mean? There's just so many things.
Yeah,
See,
but
this
I
is
think
me.
you
I'm
can-
a
I think you
complex
can-
thinker.
You
I
can
think
tell the
into
difference
things.
between vanilla scent and some perfume that you don't wear. So
That's true. If it's a different type of, I guess so. I don't know. Well, maybe I'm just thinking, ahead of it. Why would someone walk in the door knowing they were? I think people are probably more careful than that. I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt and think, So that's not something you probably find very often. That's my point.
yeah, benefit of the doubt is good.
Right.
Being overly private or protective of other kinds of communication.
That's I think a big one.
Where
today,
they,
technology era.
maybe there's a password on their computer now, where before there wasn't, and they were pretty open and free with what they do, and again, look for the change.
Yeah, and let me say this: if you aren't sharing your password with your significant other, why is that?
That's a good.
There would be
yeah.
no reason to hide that, honestly, unless it's business related and you're held to privacy. I mean, we have that in our profession. We have some privacy laws to abide by, so to speak. But I mean, when it comes to your electronic and it's your phone or your iPad, your laptop, these things should be open to your spouse. You should
Exactly.
be able to have access to that
There shouldn't-
anytime. Shouldn't be any question about that.
Unless you have security clearance or something
Precisely.
bizarre like that,
Right.
then yeah, that shouldn't be something that's off limits. Just even to keep up appearances, even there should be no
Secrets.
secrets, no doubt whatsoever.
No, that just causes problems.
Exactly. Number 11, finding a spare change of clothes in the car. Yeah, this I don't know exactly how many people keep a spare change of clothes in their car
Unless they're working out at a gym.
unless they're working out or whatever. But yeah, keeping some kind of
Which, if your spouse doesn't know that, then you probably are.
again, you know,
Questionable behavior.
any kind of odd behavior or something
Right.
that's out of place or seems out of place, and you know, you're gonna know, you're gonna be able to tell that something is not right,
Yeah.
and you know, your spidey senses or whatever are gonna
That's kind of evidential,
go off,
though.
and
I mean,
Yeah.
change of clothes when you're not working out, or some water.
no, I'm good. Credit card receipts from purchases you don't recognize.
This is where it's hard, though, Sean, because a lot of couples are actually they're doing separate bank accounts.
Yeah, that's actually kind of more common.
More common these days.
Yeah,
So,
but again, you know,
which
if
is
you-
okay. I believe in that to a certain degree. I personally think, you know, you should have separate accounts individually, and then have your own personal account that goes for all the bills and what you're separating. But
Yeah.
that's just my belief.
But any kind of purchases that, you know, or especially if they try to hide them, or you know, they can't explain it, or their explanation seems completely ridiculous or off the wall, that's, you know, that's again something else that might be a big red flag.
Right.
A sudden and drastic change up or down in sexual behavior. Again, this is, you know, if your man wants it 5 days a week and for the first 5 years of your marriage, and all of a sudden there's almost no interest whatsoever, that's again something that in any kind of drastic change, especially in sexual behavior.
But please pay attention to, again, you know, if you have a death in the family, things that can contribute to a person maybe dealing with an emotional thing, you know, pay attention to all that. Don't, you know, this doesn't mean your spouse is having an affair,
Right.
necessarily.
Take everything into account.
Take everything
you
in account, please.
know. Exactly.
Yes.
Frequent and sudden anger outbursts towards you that have absolutely nothing to do with you. Again, this is kind of goes back to wanting to distance themselves from the relationship, and
Pick and fight,
you know, yeah, picking fights out of nothing. You know, throwing a hand grenade into something and trying to
create
a dilemma or a problem where there really doesn't need to be.
Why would anyone do that?
Again, it's a way to kind of psychologically distance themselves,
Or maybe it's to pick a fight so they can leave the house, and
or that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Being able to, you know,
that makes sense.
just really kind of make their relationship in their own mind less attractive to it, so they almost as kind of a justification or validation that what they have at home is not really working anymore,
Right.
which makes doing what they're doing that much easier. 14, frequent and sudden anger. Well, never mind. 15, there is a reluctance of intimacy and poor excuses for their behavior to be reluctant. Again, any kind of this doesn't really so much involve sex, but if they've been, you know, if they've leaned on you for emotional support, or they've always been taking their problems to you, and you know, as they should, and all of a sudden that kind of stops, that intimacy, that connection between you, all of a sudden is broken or damaged.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a really good relationship where you can communicate with each other, and then all of a sudden they're pulling away, there's a reason.
Yeah.
I can't say it's infidelity. I couldn't, you know, I wouldn't do that to you. If you pulled
Right.
away, I'd ask you what's going on, you know. But I wouldn't necessarily think there was something outside of that. But
Again, you know, something that is way outside the norm.
mm-hmm.
And you know, again, look at all these things in the aggregate, in the big picture. And you know, if one or two of these things are present, then you know, it might just be kind of a blip on the radar. And you know, all relationships are going to go through periods of time where they're closer, and then periods of time where, you know, they're not as close. And that's kind of where the work comes in, and you have to kind of build and nurture that back. That doesn't mean that, you know, something's going on, but again, you need to kind of take a lot of these things into account.
That's yours, not
Yeah, I
mine.
know.
Don't look at
Anyway,
me.
sorry about that. So yeah, these are just some pretty common signs that again, you're gonna know, you're gonna be able to tell when things are not right, and trust your gut, trust your instincts. Use kind of these things as a little bit of a guide.
Right.
But again, subconsciously, people know when things are not right.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, let's say that your spouse or your significant other is cheating. Let's say you've hired a private investigator or whatever, and you got the evidence, and everything is, you're devastated and you're hurt and you're humiliated or whatever. Your significant other has apologized. There's they your significant other has apologized, and they swear up and down, it'll never happen again, blah blah blah. And let's say you want to overcome that, and you want to give them a second chance.
Let's back up. I mean, let's first go over the communication of approach the subject, because you just kind of jumped in to
okay,
that. Yeah. So what's important is if you are having an affair, it's best to be open and honest about it. I believe wholeheartedly in honesty, and that would lessen the burden so much on your significant other. I think if you're honest up front about it, and kind of get to that point of communication where, okay, I screwed up, okay, I messed up for whatever reason, but just be honest about it. Be upfront. Don't try to hide it. There's no point in it. Once the evidence is there, you can't deny it. Lessen the heartache for that person. Have enough love for that person to admit it, and so you can work forward towards a solution, whether that's together or apart, because that's where the healing starts. It's important, I think, for you to have that kind of closure. Don't deny. Of course, if you are innocent, absolutely stand your ground. But if you're not, man up or woman up. Tell them the truth so you can move forward in the best manner you can.
Yeah.
Best manner in dealing with this particular situation.
And unfortunately, most people won't
You won't. Yeah.
won't admit it until you present them with proof.
Right. That's why it's
Which
important
is
to have
why
evidence.
we have a job.
Yeah. It's true.
But yeah, if it does happen, then there are ways to kind of to come back around full circle and rebuild what's been broken. And sometimes even if both partners are committed to making it work, and both partners are wanting to resolve this, and there's true accountability, and they you have a true desire to overcome this, then it may even be possible to come back and be stronger than you were before. I know that sounds kind of hard to believe, and kind of maybe a little bit.
I think that would take a lot of time, which is, to me, if you have a family, it's worth it. But
Yeah, again,
honestly, I think it matters if you have children with that person,
yeah,
because you're not just divorcing each other. You're essentially dividing a family, and there's a lot that comes into that. So
it's just so devastating, and so it's just not worth it. Cheating is just infidelity, adultery, whatever you want to call it. It's just not worth it. It can cause irreparable damage to not only your spouse, but especially if you have children. Any kind of strife life is hard enough. Marriage is tough. Marriage is it takes constant work and effort, and why bring more trouble into it than is already there. But again, you know, people just don't seem to learn, don't seem to learn their lesson.
Well, there's serial cheaters too.
Serial cheaters, yeah.
Sometimes it's a one-time deal, and then there's serial cheaters who, I don't know, they can't settle down. They think they know what they want, and they don't. So
Bouncing from one
yeah,
passionate phase to the next, exactly.
right.
But it is possible to overcome infidelity. Again, it's going to take a whole lot of work on both parties, and a real commitment to making that change, and you know, never ever doing it again. And
Repairing it though too. It's
also,
about rebuilding and
yeah.
repairing, because I mean, there's a lot of damage done with that. You know, it's not just a betrayal in your marriage. It's a personal insult. Honestly,
Yeah,
it's a personal insult. That person feels degraded. But it's not. Again, it's beyond betrayal. You're tearing up their self-esteem. You're tearing them down. You know, you're hurting them, and that's never okay.
right.
As a person, it's not just about your marriage. You know, this is a person, a human being who has feelings. So take that in consideration before you decide to, you know, look elsewhere for, you know, affection or communication, anything. I mean, it's never okay to have when you're married. It's never okay in a relationship. Period. It's never okay to have another person come between you and your spouse or your significant other. It's just not. There's no excuse.
Right.
It's just not. So live and learn, and make those changes so that you can be stronger at the end of the day, so that your relationship can be stronger at the end of the day. But there's always hope. There's so many things that can bring you back together. So many ways, so many things.
Yeah,
I mean,
if
people,
both
things. I mean,
if both partners make a concerted effort, and both partners have a real true desire to overcome this and make this work, then it is possible.
absolutely.
But again, you know, things need to change. You need to address not only the betrayal and the infidelity itself, but also what led up to it. Something in the relationship was
I think
missing.
that's the most important. I do. I think that's the most important.
And both
What's behind it all?
both partners have some work to do. Both partners have I don't really want to say accountability, but again, you know, something there was a need
Right.
that was not met, and again, kind of what we talked about at the beginning, you know, with that whole compassionate phase and meeting each other's needs and putting their needs ahead of your own.
So important.
Because, you know, again, if your partner or your needs are not met, then that can, you know, over time that can really lead to something that is not where you want to be. But it definitely is possible for relationships to overcome infidelity with a hard, concerted effort and a drive and determination that you really want this to work, and you really love this person, and, you know, you have this strong drive and need to make it work. Then yeah, we're all for going for it. Especially, you know, if you've put a whole lot of time and energy, and if you have children, and, you know, all kinds of other things can go into play. And again, you know, every relationship is different, and you know, you have to kind of reevaluate and decide for yourself if this is something that you want to do, because, you know, a lot of relationships aren't gonna make it, whether there's infidelity or not, just, you know, statistically speaking.
Yeah, you have a lot working against you as it
Yeah.
is. We just do. It's just, you know, the world is complex.
Yes, it is. So that is pretty much all we have to say on that. Again, don't make mountains out of molehills. Don't start accusing if you don't know for 100% certainty. And, you know, again, until you get some kind of evidence, some kind of proof, there's really no way to know for certain, because really, honestly, your significant other is not going to admit it. And if you're the one cheating, you probably would not admit it either.
Why wouldn't they admit it?
I don't know.
Where'd that come from?
Well, I mean, if you ask, are you cheating on me, then, most people will say no, just because,
Out of personal protection, maybe?
yeah,
But they want to get their conscience clear, I would think.
conscience. I don't know. I would, just thinking that if you're hiding that and you're not, you
I guess if you're going to great lengths to keep it hidden, or I don't know, man. Let's communicate. Tell each other how you're feeling beforehand. If you think you are on the verge of needing to step out on your marriage for some kind of emotional or sexual comfort, go to your partner and tell them how you're feeling. Tell them that there's something going on with you. I don't know. Of course, there's so many things obstacles in this world that can affect your relationship, but a lot of times it's personal. I don't know. I would want to think someone would be honest. Maybe I just have more faith in people.
yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, and every relationship is different, and everybody is different, and you can't really. There are no hard, true laws or facts or anything like that. You can't, Yeah. So I guess that about does it for this. This is a pretty long episode.
Yeah, we didn't intend on that. This is a hefty topic, though, and there's a lot to go over.
It
so
is. We might revisit this topic again in the future, but
yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other things that that influence, custody and all this, that comes from not just infidelity, but it comes from, a failed marriage. So it could easily be, we could easily come back to this topic.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. So that does it for us. We hope you have a blessed day and you make good choices. Take care of each other. What?
Sorry. Make
Take
good
care.
Choices.
Yeah, make good choices. Take care of each
I
other.
used to tell my
take care
girls
of
that every day
yourself.
before they went to school. Make good choices. That's funny.
Be a good person, as good as you can.
Be nice to each other.
Yeah.
Please. We don't have enough of that, honestly. I still believe in mankind. But
yeah.
Be good. Just be good.
Be good.
No.
All right, so we will.
We're
going to wrap it up for this episode. Yeah. We will post hopefully a little more regularly than we have. We've been pretty busy.
We'll get it all the kinks worked out. This is like our real first podcast, so, and it's getting late in the day. And I didn't realize it, but Sean's not an early riser, and I am. So yeah, I'm ready to, get on with the day. So y'all take care.
Take care. We'll
have a good one.
We'll see you on the flip side.
Right. Bye.
Bye.